I'm just going to tell you a bit about the group and how we organised the protest and how it all came together. I say the group, it's actually just me. It kind of came together very organically, and I'll tell you about that from the beginning. So it started when I first thought, are you guys all familiar with Youth Defence and the posters? Have you seen them?
Yeah.
Okay, so Youth Defence were a group that were set up in 1992 after the X case to protest the fact that a 14-year-old girl who was suicidal could have an abortion of the child conceived of rape, which I think is despicable. They also, during the C case, offered the girl's parents involved €51,000 to get her to keep the baby, after which the girl was taken into the care of the HSE and had an abortion anyway. They held vigils for the C case baby, which is peculiarly disgusting, I think. So I saw these posters first on my way to work one morning, on the 151 bus route just up behind Connolly Station, and it had a photo of a woman. And it says, abortion tears her life apart. There's always a better option. And I just got so angry, because to me that is obvious and blatant lies. What is the better option when you have cancer? What's the better option when the baby won't survive? What's the better option when you don't want to be pregnant? These are all situations in which there is no better solution than abortion. I then also went and did some checking up, facts and statistics. There were a few other things floating around the internet. It turned out that in the years between 2006 and 2011, according to the Crisis Pregnancy Agency statistics, depending on the year that you look at, between 87 and 95% of Irish women who chose abortion retrospectively felt that they made the right choice for them, which to me was obvious proof that these ads were fallacious. They were lying about the reality of abortion for women and the reality of why you might need an abortion. I saw then a poster later that had a picture of a fetus, a very well developed fetus, also saying abortion tears her life apart, which was obviously meant to mean the fetus, and I thought that was utterly disgusting. Because, number one, this is not the stage that abortions happen at. Very, very rarely do abortions happen past 18 plus weeks. Something like 90% of all abortions that take place in the UK, and therefore you can safely assume cover Irish women, occur at embryo stage, which is pre-13 weeks and is about that big. They don't look like developed babies. I don't consider them babies. They're possibly a potential baby, much like a sperm and an egg cell is a potential baby, but we don't cry for menstruation or ejaculation every time that happens, so I don't really see the point of crying over abortion at a 6-week period either. So at this point, I went away, I did look around the internet to see who else was complaining about it. Choice Ireland, who are a really good activist group, if any of you guys are interested in getting involved, they're choice_Ireland@gmail.com, and you'll find them at Choice Ireland on Facebook as well. They had some similar stats up, so I took a look at their letter, took some of the stats from that, sent off a complaint to the ASAI, even though the ASAI were saying on their website, as I found out, that they weren't accepting complaints on it because it wasn't a commercial advertising campaign. It seemed to me ridiculous. It was being run by JC Desu, a company who say that they abide by the ASI rules but obviously don't, because they will put out campaigns like this. I mean, I assume that as an advertising company they were completely involved in consulting and coming up with a message on it. They put their name on it, so you'd imagine so. The ASAI eventually got back to me saying that they weren't handling complaints in the campaign. I then decided that my best course of action was to try to bring this to someone in authority's attention. So I emailed Ivana Bashik because I've met her a few times. I found her a very sympathetic person. Also, she's a very well-known pro-choice and feminist activist. So I thought she'd be a good one to go to. After writing the letter, I realised that I'd put a fair amount of effort into writing it up and doing the research of the stats and stuff. So I put in a link to the Crisis Pregnancy Agency figures and stuff like that. For the 87% of women last year thought they'd made the right choice for themselves. About the 89% of women. So I took the letter, copied and pasted it and stuck it up on Twitter. And I tweeted a longer link. And that actually really, I tweeted it at Siren magazine, who were a gender equality publication run by initially Trinity, but I think they branched out. Tweeted at Siren magazine and Choice Ireland, who spread it around. It started being passed around very quickly, and I saw copies of it kind of springing up everywhere with like slightly edited bits. Fiona Hyde, who was one of the co-editors of Siren magazine, had taken some bits of it and put it into a letter that she had going around as well. So after that, Ivana got back to me really quite quickly on it, saying that she was shocked and stunned that the ASAI were refusing to handle this, suggesting that I got in touch with Comrade and with the National Consumer Agency as well. So I did both of those things. Both of them told me it was outside their remit as well. Passed that back on to Ivana, who at this point was saying, well, this is completely ridiculous. I know as well that she had brought up a few times that the ASAI do refuse to occasionally handle things for sexist content and so forth. I think she had a problem with some Facebook ads that went up a while ago, for example, and that they actually voluntarily took down because she complained. But anyway, so Ivana brought this up in the channel, saying that it was ridiculous that Youth Defence, who are essentially a far-right Christian group, funded, we think, nearly entirely by far-right US fundamentalist Christians. If you have a look at their Facebook page, they talk about how they have 60,000 people on their Facebook. Someone cleverly ran Facebook analytics on it, found out that of these 50,000 people, I think something like 9,000 are Irish and the other 51,000 are from the US, which I think can probably give you some kind of safe assumption of where their funding is coming from. I would imagine around about 85% of their funding is then coming from the US, since that appears to be the breakdown of their audience. And so Ivana then raised this in the channel. Even, I had a look at the channel transcripts right, of what she was saying. Even raising it in the channel, a respected politician, people immediately tried to shut her down. Ronan Mullen, Patrick, can't remember his name, it's alright, he doesn't need the extra publicity. And yeah, another guy. Anyway, instantly stood up and said, why are we talking about this? This doesn't need to be discussed. Sure. Literally, this phrase, that's the end of the matter. 3 men telling a woman talking about abortion to sit down and shut up. Anyway.
Sorry.
Feedback? So after this, Ivana tried to bring it up in the channel again the next day. And at this point, Ronan Mullen pointed out that, Patrick Bradford pointed out that he hadn't heard any complaints on the issue, given that he's a known anti-choice advocate, possibly not the person that we would be first to contact. But Ivana emailed me and pointed this out. So at this point, I wrote up an email to send to the entire members of the 24th channel, stuck it up again, and it started doing the rounds. Ivana emailed me back in half an hour saying that she got loads of copies of it already, so it was obviously doing the job. So I imagine that Senator Bradford could not say any longer that he hadn't heard anything on the issue. He started calling actually someone who'd sent it to him a few times over the weekend to ask specifically what our problems with it were, since we'd said it repeatedly in the email and pointed him to the facts and figures where he could find it. I'm not really sure how this confusion arose. Anyway, so at this point I kind of realised that everything was kind of being linked to from various places, and there wasn't really one central focus of anger about this campaign. There are different pro-choice pages and campaigns, definitely, but there wasn't one centralised point for all these kind of resources that were going around. Choice Ireland had various letters up around the place, Siren magazine had a few, there were mine doing the rounds. So I was still really angry and I kind of felt it wasn't getting enough attention. So Monday evening of last week, I set up our page, which you'll find if you're not aware of it already. It's at facebook.com/not always a better option. The page itself is called Unlike Youth Defence, I Trust Women to Decide Their Lives for Themselves, which we felt, I felt was a direct rebuttal to the campaign, implying as it did that women need to be looked after lest they make up their own decisions and then regret them horrifically afterwards, as they are want to. But in the first 24 hours of the page existing, we had over 250 people on it, which I felt was a huge expression of how angry people were. This is Monday of last week. As of today, there are 870 people on the page, hopefully a few more in the room. And we were spreading the emails and things were kind of, people were looking into it a bit, but as of about Wednesday or Thursday of last week, I felt that the momentum was dying down. People were still really angry, but it had been brought up in the Shannon. Ivana had tried to get a debate going on the issue of Pat Rabbeat. It was being dismissed and she couldn't keep bringing it up. I mean, there's only so many times you can say, hello, come on, this is ridiculous. And we were getting emails back from various other TDs who were supportive. Eamon Maloney deserves a particular mention for going straight to JC Desu and saying, what are you doing, this is wrong. Claire O'Regan, who is a Dublin City Councillor, raised a motion on Tuesday. I'm not actually sure how it went with Dublin City Council about their particular relationship with JC Desu, because in return for JC Desu running the Dublin Bike Scheme, They have a 10-year, 15-year lease on billboards around Dublin City from the council. So these are actually our billboards that we own, that those signs are going up on. Who else kind of took it up? We didn't get a huge response from TDs initially, which I found a bit disappointing. As I say, Ivana was the only public representative to actively stand up and speak out about this particular issue, which is making so many people so angry. I think everyone else was kind of thinking, it's only a 4-week campaign, surely it has to go away soon enough, we can just let it slide. And to me and to many others, this was not good enough. Youth Defence, as you may or may not know, are very closely linked to CORE. They share offices and a number of staff, and they frequently quote each other in their horrible publications. CORE are the people who put out those signs during the first Lisbon Treaty, or was it the second, saying that the minimum wage would drop to 185 should we pass Lisbon. I don't know if you noticed, but it hasn't actually happened. And there was a lot of talk at that time how people shouldn't be allowed to just say whatever they liked on billboards and advertising, that there should be some kind of regulation. However, nothing happened because it went away, posters were taken down and everyone forgot about it. We didn't want to see that happen again this time. So on Wednesday I stuck up a question on the page. This is not Wednesday yesterday, Wednesday a week ago. Stuck up a question on the page saying, would anybody come along to a protest outside the Dáil next week? And if so, what date? Got about 60, 70 responses saying yeah on various dates, and I was like, alright, it's not going to be that busy. And if 60 or 70 people are saying they're going to come along, there's going to be 10. But I thought, you know, feck it, I'll do it anyway, even if it's only me, it's worth it. Standing outside the Dáil can give Ivana a shout. Be grand. No, it's okay, that's not the end of the story, there's a happy ending. So on the Friday at lunchtime, I was doing all this from my iPad and work. If there's anyone here I work with, don't tell my employers, but I'm leaving on Tuesday anyway, so it's fine. So I created an event, called it Protest Against the Youth Defence Ad Campaign and the AI, and had it set for 6:30 PM on Wednesday outside Leinster House. I left it and deliberately didn't look at it again for half an hour, because otherwise I'd be refreshing and going, why isn't anybody coming in? But when I went back to look at it, within half an hour it had 56 people signed up to go, and I was in a cafe at the time and went really loudly when looking at my iPod, oh my fucking god! The 3 tables around me stopped what they were doing to turn and stare at me, and I had to go, sorry, Facebook. It's very embarrassing, but totally worth it. At the end of the day, we had 200 confirmed people attending the protest. Even if you do, as I was doing, have those numbers for, you know, people you could actually expect to turn out, I thought that was pretty impressive. Yeah. So on Friday evening, I emailed Ivana again saying, look, I've done this. Hope you're okay with that. Is there any chance you'd come along? And she emailed me back very enthusiastically going, this is fantastic, of course I'll come along. And so I did up an email again to be sent to various TDs who've recently shown themselves A, supportive of our campaign, and B, supportive of being pro-choice in general. So people who had voted for Claire Daly's members' bill, particularly Claire Daly herself, of course, various other people. A good few Labour TDs as well who have spoken out again on pro-choice issues in the past, and people who responded to us about the campaign then. We had another couple of campaigns on board at this point, in particular mentioned for termination for medical reasons, who are an Irish campaign set up by women who've had to have terminations because their babies won't survive, and travel to England for that at stages of 20 plus weeks, which is particularly horrible because after it happens you can't even go home to your own bed, you don't have your family around you. You know, your much longed for child is no longer in existence, and you have to deal with the grief and mourning of that in a country that you've had to travel to, be shamed for so doing by the posters in the airport put up by Youth Defence to catch women on their way to abortions. They're also up in the ferry port. And then travel back, having to tell everyone what's happened because everyone's already known that you're pregnant. And I think that's a particularly heartbreaking situation. There's actually a documentary crew following the women who are involved in that campaign around at the moment, so they called a bit of our protest there on Wednesday. Anyway, on Saturday then, I emailed a whole host of TDs inviting them along to the protest, stuck up the link again on Twitter along with all the email addresses. Oh, that was something in particular I was doing. I was sticking up all the email addresses of the entire channel when I sent out the first email to make sure that people do it, because if you can just copy and paste instead of having to go find it out for yourself, far more likely to get it done. Who got back to me? Anne Ferris got back to me very quickly saying, that's great, I'll be there. Oh, I made very sure to mention that Ivana was coming along as well, so we didn't just sound like a crowd of angry people, which of course we are, but we're a crowd of angry people with one particular angry person that we can point to and say, look, we have backup. Anne Ferris got back to me quite quickly. Claire Daly, one of the women from Termination for Medical Reasons, had been onto her and she said she'd come along. She also emailed me back then the next day saying that she'd come. Eamon Maloney told one of his constituents that he'd be there. Aidan O'Riordan didn't email me back but showed up on Wednesday all the same, which was good of him. Same with Ciara Conway. There was someone else who said they'd be there. They slip my mind at the moment.
Did Dominic Hannigan say that?
Dominic, he did, yeah.
Oh, did he?
Dominic Hannigan, I have a picture with him, Mike.
I'm really bad with faces. Who was it? Richard Boyd Barrett came up to take the megaphone off me at one point and have a word. I was kind of standing there looking at him and he goes, Richard Boyd Barrett? And I was like, oh right. Unless I've met people a few times, that's no chance. And as well, I've been told he was going to be in the minute, so I wasn't really expecting to see him, which was a bit unfair, I felt. So at this point we had a good few names saying they'd come along, and I was starting to go, oh my god, this is all going to go horribly wrong. No one's going to show up. There's going to be me and these 6 public representatives standing in front of the door. No one's going to have posters. What are we going to do? So on Wednesday I got on to one of my friends, and this is still all just me really running the page. Like, obviously I have a good few like-minded people on it at this point and who are saying they're going to come to the protest, but nobody else is really sticking up information or has administrator access, that kind of thing, because I wasn't really sure how to do that after everyone, like for the first few you start seeing, like, make a minute and you're like, oh yeah, I might do that, and then you lose the ability to see all the people who've joined your page and you're like, oh here, come on. So on Monday I got a friend of mine, Kathy Doherty, to ring up Exchange in Temple Bar and Shomer Spree, who are up off Belvedere Court, who both make their spaces available to public interest groups for free to come along and have a chat, to see if they'd let us go and poster make there on Monday and Tuesday evening. And I didn't think either of them would say yes. Both of them said yes very quickly. So we stuck up the poster making events, and again I was like, no one's going to come to this, it's going to be just me making my posters on my own, that's fine. A good few people showed up. It was a really great way to meet people, actually. It was really inspiring. We made loads of posters, loads and loads of posters, so that was fun. Shomer Spree actually had a feminist discussion group that was on beforehand about pro-choice ideas in particular. Like, actually, one thing that I haven't made clear enough probably in this talk is that we were particularly protesting about the content of the posters. We weren't protesting, let me make this really clear, about people being pro-life. It is not our business to judge people for the view I hold. Yeah, that was another, yeah, there are always options was the big thing that really got our back up. There's always a better option. There isn't. Yeah, we weren't in the business of criticising people for being pro-life. We were criticising people for perpetuating myths about abortion. If you have a point of view that you're willing to back up, do it, don't do it with lies. We were also criticising the ASAI and other legislative bodies for refusing to regulate this. I mean, it just seems ridiculous that anyone should be allowed to put up anything they like in our public space. Any lie they want. I could put up the sky is green if I had 150 grand in as many places as they have, and there wouldn't be anything anyone is allowed to do about it, and that just seems ridiculous to me. Well, allowed to do about it. We'd be willing to do about it. So, yeah, we made a load of posters of our own, talked about some pro-choice issues in general, and then on Wednesday, one of the women who had met on Monday night at the poster making session rang around a few radio stations to see if they'd give us any airtime. We got some space on Spin Southwest, and I went on and talked about the protest and why we were doing it, making it clear again that it wasn't about against people being pro-life, it was against people perpetuating lies and trying to shame women for the choices that they might or might not make. And then after I had my call, I deliberately turned off the radio and didn't listen to what I knew was going to be the enraging aftermath of people calling in. Apparently it was exactly like that. And then later on at 23 we got some space on Phantom, which turned out to be really great because a good few people showed up by having heard it on Phantom. Oh, as well as that, sorry, I forgot to mention, we got Graham Linehan to retweet a link to the protest on Sunday evening, I think. He'd been talking to the people from Termination for Medical Reasons, and so I thought that he might be a good one to go for. Des Bishop then, after the link was treated, said that he confirmed himself as an attendee at the protest, but I didn't see him last night. That doesn't mean he wasn't there. It was a bit hectic. Then on, I think Tuesday, I went along to the Garda station on Pearse Street, having never attended a protest before, by the way, let alone organised one, and said, I'm sorry, I'm having a protest. 300 people said they're going, but Ivana Bashik and Anne Ferris and Claire Daly are going to be there, and they're real grown-ups, so you can't do it. So, to be fair, the guards were lovely about it. They were very, very nice. They said, that's grand, just don't block the traffic. I said, fine, we won't. That was a lie. We slightly blocked the traffic. I told them that I was slightly concerned that Youth Defence might turn up, because they are known for particularly aggressive tactics. At their Rally for Life in Belfast last week, they had a known fascist marching with them, the founder of the Democratic Right movement in Ireland, whatever that is. So this is the kind of thing that I was quite worried about as well. I'm currently, 17 weeks pregnant myself, so I was quite worried about how this could potentially go if it got violent. I was like, I'm not sticking around, you guys can handle it. So Wednesday comes, been on the radio, we've got all our signs together, drive up, park on Stephen's Green, go down with all the signs. This is myself and my partner, he's doing all the heavy lifting. He pointed out at one point stage, actually, I'd never actually asked him, was he going to come along? I was just like, right, we're going now. Which I felt slightly bad about, but in fairness, like. So showed up there at I think about 6:10, and by about 25 past, there was easily 100 people outside, and I was like, well, right, this is more than 30. Oh, at this point 510 people had said that they were going to come to the event, so I was still like, there'll still be about 200 absolute tops. Thankfully it stayed sunny until right before we said we were going to leave. So 100 people were outside the door, all with various banners and stuff. If any of you guys have seen the coverage on Facebook or anything like that, it looks amazing. There are so many banners being held up, so many posters. Some of them were really great. There was one in particular saying, "Dear Youth Defence, your over-identification with fetuses is creepy and unhealthy." Which I liked. And so about 6:30 comes along, and Ivana comes out and says hello and all the rest of it, and I'm like, hi, I've done anything like this before, what do I do? I kept that inside my head. My friend who has the megaphone shows up and gives me the megaphone, and I'm like, oh god, what do I do now? What's the bit that happens next? And everyone kind of lines up on the pavement, and I'm like, right, get off the road. Which went by the wayside really quite rapidly. We ended up with a group of people kind of standing around. And as I said, I would normally be quite nervous talking in front of large groups of people. So I was standing there with the megaphone going, what happens next? What do I do? But I just kind of started talking to the crowd, saying, look, this is what we believe, this is why we think this is wrong, this is why we think this needs regulation. And from there, it just really kicked off, went really well. There was a lovely vibe with the crowd. Someone in stilts, who was apparently part of a street art theatre sponsored by Sinead Redmond, showed up wearing pro-life or pro-choice signs, which was particularly entertaining. There was a lot of really good chanting going on. There was one in particular at the end, which had there was between 300 and 400 people there, best guess. Yeah, it was really, really amazing turnout. One of somebody who is reasonably involved in pro-choice activism and has been for about 20 years told me that it was the biggest pro-choice rally she's seen in Ireland. So that was seriously impressive. If I might point out, I think that Youth Defence in creating this ad campaign have seriously shot themselves in the foot. This has not rallied anti-abortion sentiment in any way. So yeah, I think, they've been around since 1992, and even then they were kind of dinosaurs. They were set up by one family in particular, the Vic Fahunas. And their mother of that family, Una Van Vic Fahunas, was campaigning against single mothers getting any kind of state support in the 1980s. So obviously it's only children in the womb that she cares about. After that they can starve and die outside of the streets for all she cares. I would also like to point out that the only people who've made any submissions against children's rights being included in the Constitution are pro-life groups, anti-abortion groups. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any kind of coherent logical sense to me at all. But there you go, worth knowing. So yeah, these between 300 and 400 people were standing behind their banners, holding them up and all shouting for a choice. It was really, really moving. It was really uplifting. We had some fantastic coverage if you check out the page. Politico stuck up an interview with me, as well as some coverage of the actual rally protest itself. Richard Boyd Barrett said a few words, because I asked would any of our public representatives come up and say a few words, not having realised that most of them had to run back inside for a vote. But thankfully Richard Boyd Barrett was still there. Spoke really, really well actually, described youth defence as dinosaurs that belong to the past. Sadly though, as I pointed out, these are the people whose position is constitutionally enshrined in this country. These are the people whose position is enshrined in our law. These people, not us, not the people who believe that you have a right to your own body, not the people who believe that your personal life is yours to choose. That they, as I said at the rally yesterday, the fundamental difference between those of us who are pro-choice and those who are anti-abortion are that those of us who are pro-choice deeply and fervently believe in your right to have autonomy and control over your body, whereas those who are anti-abortion and anti-choice fervently and deeply believe in their right to have governance and control over your body. So yeah, the rally went really well. And just as I said, alright everyone, let's go to the pub, the heavens absolutely opened. Poured down. This was the time when Politico were trying to grab me for an interview as well, so I think you can probably see the rainfall in that. There was a reporter from the Indo and the Times there as well. I'm not sure if that managed to get any coverage. The guy from the Indo told me that he'd been following James O'Reilly around all day, so I think we were kind of second best. But what really came out of it was that people stood up and said loudly that they are pro-choice, that they believe in women's rights to control their bodies without state or church interference. And hopefully, as I said again yesterday, this anger will not go away when the campaign goes away, because 12 women every single day in this country have to travel to the UK to get an abortion. That is huge, huge numbers, between 5,000 and 8,000 a year. When the posters go away, the pain won't for them. So I really hope that the movement that has been galvanised by these posters can be harnessed properly. And come the 28th of September, which is International Decriminalise Abortion Day, we'll have something again that moves and shows the public that Ireland wants to see. As a greater country, we want to see women given the right to do what they will with their own bodies. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.